Okay, so I'm going to do some short videos on airbrushing basics, basically. This is my Evolution airbrush, which is a Silverline 2-in-1. It comes in a lovely box, 2 needles and a second larger mixing pot with a lid as well. The other bits in there are little bits that I've got, spares, seals and things like that. The biggest thing that you've got to learn when using an airbrush is how to strip it down very, very quickly, because when you're spraying, you don't want to just be taking it apart, cleaning it thoroughly, coming back and spraying, because one of the things that happens with airbrushing is that there are blockages. Okay, so use your instructions, look at your instructions and get used to breaking stuff down, but more importantly, learn where the blockages are going to happen. The main blockage that occurs on this airbrush is on the needle tip, and the needle tip, there's a little screw here, just the very top here, and if you look, there is the needle. You can see it going in and out as I depress the lever. Quick note on the lever, this is a 2-action lever. Essentially it switches the air pressure on and off. There's no adjustment of how much air that actually goes through the airbrush. That is controlled by the compressor. The further back that you pull the lever, the more paint that comes out, and you can see how that works by the fact that when the lever is pulled back, this hole where the needle is, essentially more paint is allowed to flow through that. So this point here, he says, desperately trying to find something to point at, this little thing here, this needle here, is what gets clogged up, and what happens is the paint, like it does in the pots as you use paint, it skins essentially, so it dries when it reaches, when the air hits it, and when it's being blown through, and you'll find that paint will essentially dry on this needle, and what that does is it causes splatter, it causes the paint not to flow through the pot down here through to here when it's being blown out from the air through here and up there. So one of the biggest things that I will do when I see something like that happening is that this comes off, I'll look at this point here, and invariably there will be paint on it. I'll get some airbrush thinners or cleaner, thinners with a paintbrush on, and essentially do this on the paint, and then use some glue roll and gently pull it away. That usually is enough to clean it. The other thing that potentially can cause problems is this point here is obviously got holes in it, and I've just dropped it. Try and put it under the paintbrush just so you can see that it's got holes in it. So those little holes sometimes they're a point for paint to collect on, and they collect and dry in very, very weird ways. So that is another place that may need cleaning. It might need a little bit more cleaning than normal, but essentially you can carry on painting with an airbrush by doing those two things. Quick note on disassembly of this particular airbrush. The paint holder comes off and can be cleaned. It's the back part of this airbrush unscrews, and on this particular model there is a screw here. What that does is it pushes and advances and depresses how far this needle here, which is obviously ended on the points there, the airbrush, how far it goes, and if I tighten it really hard, this will not go very far, and as I loosen it, you can see it goes back. And what that does is it helps you as a user of the airbrush to control how far this lever goes back for paint, the amount of paint going out. You will find that this is not an easy thing to do, this action of holding the right amount of paint, and this is a great help because there's an awful lot of strain put on this finger, these two fingers here, as you're holding it, so you will experience fatigue in those muscles in that hand. So to disassemble this, I unscrew this. There is a securing screw here. This doesn't really need cleaning at all. The top bit will need cleaning over there, and then this bit unscrews here, and you pull out the needle backwards, not forwards, backwards. Okay, this is quite pointy, it will hurt, and also it's very important that the needle stays clean and not bent and damaged in any way, because if this gets damaged, then you have a problem, and you will probably need to buy a new needle to use your airbrush again. When you're putting the needle back in, it goes in this way, essentially the same way that you've just taken it out. Goes in through there. Then you put this sealed part on. There is a little black rubber O-ring there around that. I've got some spares in my box should I need to replace that. Be very careful when you do this, and then push the needle back, tighten that. You can then put this head on and the screw back on, and away you go. Okay, eventually. So the big thing for me in this particular model is to be able to take this off very quickly, clean the needle, and then carry on. That is Airbrush 101 Part 1.